All right, I just want to talk about an amazing experience I had last weekend at Heroes Con. It's a huge comic book convention that happens in Charlotte, North Carolina every year. What's really cool is that my LCS is actually Heroes Aren't Hard to Find, which is the comic book store that actually puts on the convention every year. It's been like over 40 years or something like that. The convention's been going on. And this is a kind of comic book convention that is focused on the actual books and their creators. It's not one of those Comic Cons where there's a bunch of like celebrities that are in the TV shows and movies. But if you're a comic book collector, it doesn't get much better than this. I mean, this con there's so many vendors. You can find any book that you can think of, from dollar books all the way up to big time grails that are $20,000 or more at this convention. And you can I think one of the biggest draws for a convention like this is that you get to meet and get your book signed by absolute legends in the comic book industry, in terms of writers and artists. In addition to the big names like Chris Claremont and John Romita Jr., you also have smaller comic book creators that are working on indie things that are, trying to come up and get get their comics noticed, and they're going to sell their comics at this convention. So you really have like such a variety of cool creators and cool comic books, and that all comes together to make like an absolutely amazing con. And I didn't know about this con when I first moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, like years ago, but now I've been going every year and I've enjoyed myself every time. Now, one thing about this is that, I've heard a lot of talk recently about con prices, right? People are concerned that at these big cons, the prices actually get, they actually go up a little bit because they know, for some reason, they think people are willing to pay more at these cons. And on that subject, I will say this. My experience at Heroes Con is that, yes, some of the vendors have their books way overpriced, but there are I've never seen so many vendors at a con. There's so many vendors, and I was able with spending some time hunting to find really great deals and books that were graded correctly, priced correctly. And I was always able to kind of haggle and get the price down a little bit, and buy books at what I think most people will agree is a fair price. So yes, con prices. I mean, I've gone to mini cons too, like smaller cons, and I can understand why those are appealing to people, and I plan on going to more of those as well. But I don't think this con is like super egregious in terms of like overpricing comic books. I think if you really hunt, you can find good deals there. And I got so many books this year, and I don't think I got ripped off at all. But I'm going to be talking about all these books that I got on the channel, and I'm going to be making shorts about these books and stuff like that. I'll show a few that I got in this, in this video as well, just to give you an idea of what the kind of stuff I was picking up at the convention. Now, that being said, I want to talk about the creators that I was able to get books signed by and meet. My wife, as always, was wearing her Ray-Ban Meta glasses, and she got a bunch of footage. Again, I call it Fabia Vision. So I'm going to put up some of that footage here of the different creators that we got to meet. I thought it was better just to film it with the glasses rather than be holding a camera in their face, but I'll put up some of the video of the different creators. Let me see if I go down my list here. You had Chris Claremont, freaking legend as always. He's got so many books that are potential signs for him because he's got so many, key issues, particularly with the X-Men and the other X titles. And every time I've talked to Chris Claremont, even though it's been brief, I have thoroughly enjoyed my conversation, and I have felt that he has such a passion for all the writing that he's done. And I think he's actually even writing a few modern titles here and there. So, he's still involved in the comic book industry, and he always has some funny anecdote or some funny story to tell about, a character, or when he was creating a character, or why they did this with that character or whatever. It's just a pleasure to talk to Chris Claremont and to get books signed by him. He does talk a little bit, which makes his line move a little bit slower, but we'll talk about this more when we come to someone like Steranko. I don't think what he does is like disrespectful to the other people in the line. I think it's good to talk a little bit to the people that come up so you can have like a personal experience, but you have to keep the line moving. And I actually think Chris Claremont has an okay, he does an okay job at that, at balancing those two. So Chris Claremont. Another one would be, let's see here. Oh, John Romita Jr. Okay, John Romita Jr. is a freaking legend. He actually was scheduled to come to the con last year, and unfortunately, his father did pass away last year, so he didn't come to the con last year. Totally understandable, absolutely, but we were lucky enough to have him come this year, and he's an absolutely great guy. I love his art. I love his old school art that looks more like John Romita Sr., and I'm a big fan of his modern art too. There's like a Jack Kirby-esque kind of feel to his modern art, and I like the blockiness, and I like that it's different. I like artists that draw differently than every other artist and every other title. I like when you can recognize an artist's work. And even though some people aren't, too much of a fan of John Romita Jr.'s, modern style, I'm a huge fan of it. And so super happy to get to meet him and get more comic books signed by the legend John Romita Jr. himself. And he's another one that is just, he like, from my brief interactions with him at the con, he seems like such a great, nice, genuine person. I see what he posts on, Instagram and stuff with his wife, where he's doing art, and he, will talk about cons he's going to or things he's doing. And it's just super wholesome. And I think he's a great creator that I was super happy to get to meet. All right, moving on. You got Roy Thomas. Okay, let me talk for a second about Roy Thomas. I see some of these modern comic book artists and writers coming in for like an hour and a half to do signatures, and then leaving for lunch, and then coming back and doing another hour and then leaving, not even having panels and stuff. Roy Thomas goes to his table. He only does one day, but he sits down at that table. I think he only gets up to like go to the bathroom basically, and he signs books all day long for free, just taking donations. I think he was taking donations for like the local animal shelter or something like that. He's not profiting from it. Then you have guys that are charging $50 for a signature, only signing books for a half hour or a couple hours, and half the people in their line don't get, a signature. It's crazy. And I just have to give, so much love to Roy Thomas for doing what he does, and for, he's another one that talks a little bit, but he keeps the line moving quick. He gets in everybody's, books and signs them, and everybody in his line gets their book signed. And like I said, he does it. He is one of the oldest guys at the convention, and he's able to do this all day long, nonstop. And he's not even taking, he's just taking donations to an animal shelter. Don't quote me on that. It was something to do with animals, what his donations were for. So I just have to give massive props to Roy Thomas for that. The thing about Roy Thomas that's really cool too is that, he took over most of the titles for Stan Lee when Stan Lee went on to become like the editor or whatever at Marvel. He moved up. And so Roy Thomas was writing Avengers, X-Men, like all these big titles. He was doing stuff with Namor, and he was writing like the majority of, the Marvel titles at the time where he kind of took over. So when you search on like key collector comics for like Roy Thomas keys, so many come up. He has so many books that were influential to modern Marvel that he was a part of and he was the writer for. So like I said, there was a couple of times where I actually going into this con, I didn't have a book for Roy Thomas to sign going in, but I knew when I got there, I was going to be looking on that Friday, because he was there on Saturday, just Saturday. On Friday, I was like, okay, I'm going to find books for Roy Thomas to sign. And it wasn't that hard because, like I said, he was involved in so many really cool key issues over the years. So I found a bunch of books to get signed by Roy Thomas, and it was an absolute pleasure getting to talk with him. Moving on, I'm not going to go through every creator that was there. I just wanted to talk about some of the bigger ones. You had Scotty Young, always makes an appearance at this con. His books he does so many. I don't know how he has time to do all these variant covers, but he does so many. My wife is an absolutely huge fan of his work and his variant covers. So there was like 27 that are coming out over these next few weeks, and we have like the first 3 sets of books from that. So I guess we have like 20 of the big Marvels variants that he's been doing recently already, and we're gonna get the last 7 next week. So we're just collecting Scotty Young like crazy, and it was really cool to go get some books signed by him at the convention. Always a pleasure to interact with Scotty Young, and he is another one that had a really long line because he is like in huge demand right now, especially for signatures. So that was really cool. Then you had Ron Friends, Brett Breeding, and Tom DeFalco. Those three were on. I actually have a book that I think I got signed by all three of them, and they had a lot of collaboration between those three, so that there was a lot of crossover with books that they wrote or drew and stuff. So I was able to get some books signed by that group of creators. All of them really nice. All of them really cool to talk to, and super nice and great to get my books signed by all of them. So, and I think Tom DeFalco is like a really underrated writer. He has an amazing Spider-Man run, amazing Thor. I think he did Iron Man for a while too. I see Tom DeFalco on a lot of my collected editions, and especially my Epic collections. So I think he's a really great writer, and I'm super happy to get books signed by him and Ron Friends and Brett Breeding, who was also famously involved in the Death of Superman. I think, is that up? No, it's not up there. I used to have the Death of Superman issue up there signed by Brett Breeding. And on that topic, another person that was there this year was Dan Jurgens. Now, I don't think I ended up getting anything signed by him because we couldn't quite find the right book. We were actually thinking of getting that Death of Superman book that I already have. We were thinking about cracking that slab and getting the Dan Jurgens signature on there as in addition to the Brett Breeding that we already had. But we ended up deciding not to do that. But Dan Jurgens is a absolutely prolific writer in comics, and has had a lot of really amazing runs. So he was just another big name that was at the convention. What else do we have here? Charles Soule was there, which is really cool. He's got he's a modern writer, but he's had some really, really good runs. Specifically, his Daredevil is, I know, really well liked, and his Darth Vader run, which I've read, which is also amazing. So I see great things going forward with Charles Soule, and it was really cool to have him at the convention. Okay, we had Jim Steranko. Now, I got one book signed by Jim Steranko. That's probably the first and last book I'll ever get signed by him. He was talking to people for like 20 minutes. It wasn't even that long of a line, and it took hours to get to him and to actually get a book signed. Also, he was talking about his political views and stuff, which were just, it's a comic convention. I don't want to hear about your political views, and it was just a huge turnoff, like put off for me. And he doesn't let you take pictures, and like he charges $50 a signature, which is insane. Jim Steranko is an amazing artist that was extremely influential, especially in Marvel. I'm not saying he's a bad guy, but my experience in terms of getting a book signed by him was not very good. So, take that with a grain of salt, but take that as you will. Who else do we have in here? Jim Shooter was great. Got a Secret Wars signed by him. Secret Wars issue. Oh, Daniel Warren Johnson was there, who I think is like kind of leading the charge for modern comic book artists right now. Him and guys like Jorge Corona. I actually didn't get to talk to him this year because the books that I was getting signed by him, I actually gave to one of the people there that goes and gets the book signed and graded. So I am getting a book graded and signed by Daniel Warren Johnson, but I didn't have to go wait in his line specifically. So, but yeah, he was there. Really great creator, amazing Marvel. Amazing modern comic book artist and writer. He's writing Transformers right now, doing an absolutely great job. Steve Englehart was really cool. I talked to him about the invention of the Joker fish, which he loved, and he loved talking about Batman. I told him that I liked his Justice League run as well. Some of the stuff he did at Marvel. Really, really nice, sweet guy. Super happy to have gotten some comic books signed by him. I also met Ralph Macchio. Who was not the Karate Kid, but he was an editor at Marvel for a long time and was also involved in a lot of the books, like some of the Tom DeFalco stuff. And I got a couple of books signed by him. Really nice guy, and it was just really cool getting his signature, in addition to some others on the comics that I was picking up. What else we have? Bob McLeod was there, like most years, famously most well known for the New Mutants. I have a New Mutants #1 signed by Bob McLeod and Chris Claremont right there. So I didn't see him this year because I didn't have anything for him to sign, but he's always there. Really nice guy. Let's see what else I have here. Oh yeah, Jim Starlin. You know what? I went up to him at this convention and I said to him, I love your art and your writing. I think you were way ahead of your time in terms of writing and art when you came in. And of course he was like, it wasn't just me. There's this guy and that guy that were also doing this kind of thing. And we were kind of the new wave of artists and writers coming into, to comics at the time. And it wasn't just me. He was humble, but I truly do think that the stuff that Jim Starlin came up with, there's a reason they based the whole like first half of Marvel, of the MCU on the Infinity Stones and Thanos and stuff like that, because that's the stuff that Jim Starlin came up in terms of like Marvel Cosmic. And there's a reason, like I said, there's a reason they chose to do it on that, because it's super strong material and it's really cool and it's a big part of Marvel. And I think he was ahead of his time when he came up with all that stuff. And I also think his, art was ahead of its time at that time in terms of like, it almost looked like he was approaching like 90s style, like not 90s style, but it just looked like a little more modern than some of the other artists that were around him at the time, is what I think. So I just think Jim Starlin's an absolutely amazing creator, and always a pleasure to get to meet him and get some books signed by him. All right, we're going to go through some of the books that I picked up at the con. I'm not going to go through all of them because I have a whole box here, and I will go more in depth into these books, like in shorts and in other content. But for now, I just want to quickly give you an idea of like the kind of stuff we were able to pick up and what we were hunting for and things like that. So yeah, let's take a look. Okay, let's go through these really quick just to give you an idea. The first few books on this pile right here are actually signed by Roy Thomas, so this is super cool. We have Strange Tales number 158, and this is actually the first appearance of the Living Tribunal, so awesome. That's kind of a really significant key, so that's really cool. Next, we have First Carol Danvers, which is really awesome, signed by Roy Thomas. It's beat up, yes, and I knew that going into making this purchase, but it's so cool to have this key in my collection, and I still think, low grade is better than no grade. And the fact that it's signed by Roy Thomas. I even like how he did it in blue right in the middle there. Really awesome. Okay, and then we have Avengers vs. X-Men, just classic X-Men, and Avengers story here, also signed by Roy Thomas. And then we have first full appearance of Ultron is in this book right here, Avengers 55. Again, signed by Roy Thomas. So awesome. I can't say enough again how much I appreciate what Roy Thomas did coming to the convention and everything and making the donations and stuff. So really, really cool. And then after that, we have some Jack Kirby Thor covers featuring Galactus. So these were like on my list. I was looking for these because these are just absolutely beautiful books. And I love Jack Kirby's art, as you know, if you watch my channel. And these are like, this is like peak awesome Jack Kirby art. Both of these are super cool. I love looking at this cover. I mean, I love Galactus. I have a giant Galactus Funko Pop in the other room. He is maybe my favorite Marvel villain. I go back and forth with this sometimes. I just think aesthetically he is such a cool looking and awesome villain on such a large scale, and I like the way how he like, he doesn't even talk to lesser beings, because to him it's like, why would you talk to ants who you're about to destroy? I don't know. The whole thing about Galactus is awesome. So two awesome pickups there. And then Thor 150, which is a really cool cover featuring Hela. I love how she looks on this cover. And this is the first cover appearance of Hela. This is also the origin of Triton and the origin of the Inhumans in this book here. And I love how you have this little Loki over here in the corner. Or not in the corner, but on the side. Inside like the little Kirby crackles or whatever. So yeah, that's a really cool book. So that's some of the Marvel stuff, and so much more. That was just literally the tip of the iceberg in terms of signed and just comics that I picked up. So that's Marvel. Let's take a look at some of the stuff from DC. Okay, let's take a look at some of the DC stuff. We have First Spectre in the Silver Age. This is in decent condition. It's not the best, but I mean, it presents really well, and I love the Spectre. He's such a cool character, such a interesting cosmic entity in DC. So really cool to have this. And then right here I have his third appearance to the Silver Age. So I thought this was pretty cool to have both of these. And yeah, they're just beautiful books. And then we have the first appearance of the Phantom Stranger in the Silver Age. And I was looking for this book the whole con, and I was super excited to find this one in really decent condition, really good condition. And it's a really cool cover. I love the color, I love the colors on this cover. And that you have the Phantom Stranger right there kind of protecting these kids and everything. Super cool. I love the logos during this era as well. The logos look amazing. So yeah, there's that. And then this cover, I feel like is so underrated. This is such an awesome cover by Carmine Infantino. I'm a huge fan of Carmine Infantino's work, and this is a really awesome, this is Batman 194, really awesome Carmine Infantino cover that I when I saw this, I was like, wow, this is really cool. I'm totally going to pick this up, and it was for a good price too. So, and in great condition. Then we have Batman. This is a Neal Adams cover. It features the Beatles. What more do I have to say? This is, peak Neal Adams, and it's got the Beatles, and it's, Batman. It's just, this is an awesome cover, and I was super excited. I only found one of these at the whole con, and when I found it, I bought it. I didn't see it in any other booths other than the one I found it at, so that was pretty cool. Then we have some Flash stuff right here. This is a cover appearance of Captain Cold. We've got Abracadabra here. I thought this was cool. He's turning him into a puppet. We've got a cover appearance of Grodd, and here's another one. And then, Carmine Infantino again with the Rogues Gallery and the giant Flash logo. I love this, looking so cool. Had to add it to the collection. And then we've got some Green Lantern. There's more Green Lantern that I picked up there. This is just one of them. I believe this is an early appearance of Star Sapphire, which was what makes this a key. And yeah, I was really on the hunt for these Flash and Green Lantern books this year because I've been reading the Silver Age omnibuses, and I've been getting really into it. Silver Age is kind of wacky, but it's cool to see the origins of all these things that you read about in the modern comics and stuff like that. So yeah, that's again just the tip of the iceberg for what I got for DC, but there's a lot more Batman and Justice League and all this other stuff, and I haven't even rebagged and boarded them all yet. So yeah, that's just a quick idea of some of the books that I got. I'm going to show some footage now as well of just walking around the convention, and just so you can get an idea of like kind of the energy and everything that's there. We got some really cool stuff that besides just comic books. I have this Green Lantern ring that I've been wearing lately because I just think it's cool that we got. There's Legos there. There's Pokemon cards. There's 3D printed stuff. There's cosplay. They had a whole cosplay kind of competition and a stage setup. So I got some footage of that. There are some smaller booths that have indie stuff, or I know there was one booth that I saw where this guy basically writes his own writes and publishes, and it looks like he actually creates them too, like his own special comics that we got a few in a previous year. Writes and draws. Booths like that, and a lot of stuff, this original art by people, or just stuff that people made, like pins and stuff like that you can get there. So you can walk around at this convention for days, which is what I did. I mean, I went all 3 days this year with my wife, of course. And I don't know if we're going to go all 3 days every year, but I'm super happy I went all 3 days this year because there was so much to do. And yes, some of the time we spent was waiting in lines, but a lot of it was just walking around, meeting really nice people, having some nice conversations with people that are also interested in comic books. And it's nice to be surrounded by those kind of people. Even though it's a bunch of strangers, it's like in my daily life, I'm not around people that are so into comic books as I am when I'm at a convention like this. And the vibes are just great because everybody there is there for the same reason. Also, my experiences with haggling or bargaining with the vendors was good. I think, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I think I got books for a fair price. and every single person that I talked to was willing to come down a little bit on their prices, on their sticker prices, to kind of give out a better deal, which I very much appreciate. And this year, I think more than ever, I knew more about comics going into this, and it'll always progress like that, right? Like next year, I'll know even more. But I think I was at a point this year where I was able to find. I think me and my wife are like the best hunters at that whole convention. I think we found amazing books for amazing prices, and we got so many of them. I'm gonna have so many videos on the books that we were able to pick up from the con. A lot of shorts. As always, I'll make a short video on like all the different books that I got. So there will be that content coming, and then there'll be more videos like this where I'm just talking about some of the new stuff I added in my collection. So yeah, overall, it was just an absolutely amazing experience. It was so much fun. I, of course, ran into the guys from my, local comic shop there. Heroes Aren't Hard to Find. They were the main booth right in the middle. Said hi to them. But I went. One of the first places I went was to that booth so I could buy a couple books from them. Stay loyal to my LCS. I did that. But yeah, I mean, it was just so much fun, and I, am excited to go back next year. I think everyone that puts on this convention, all the people that volunteer and everything, do an absolutely amazing job. And you would never guess this little comic book store, Heroes Aren't Hard to Find, is putting on this like major event every year. You go in this store, and it's a nice comic book shop. Don't get me wrong, but it's just a small little building and whatever. But yeah, they really do, and I think they really kill it, and they make a great event that I'm always super happy to go to every year. So yeah, that's just a little bit about my Heroes Con experience. I encourage you guys, or anyone who watches, to make it down to Charlotte, North Carolina, if you ever want to go to a really cool comic book convention. And yeah, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching and listening to me rant about a comic book convention forever. I really appreciate it. And like and subscribe.